Anybody helping the choir, just come on. It's good to see everybody out this morning. You know, Brother Tim's gone to pick up Brady this morning. He's going to be back next week. So everything's in our bulletin, I think, we need to make announcements on it. Review, that's discipleship training tonight at 5, and worship service at 6 tonight. Wednesday night prayer meeting. Anybody got any other announcements today?
We still need people in the choir.
Like I said, it is good to see everybody out this morning. So, call for worship prayer. Heavenly Father, just ask you to be with us this morning, Lord. Just ask you to be with each one that's not here, one that's in the hospital. Lord, just ask you to watch over and care for them. Be the one that's not able to be here for whatever reason. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Like I said, it is good to see everybody out this morning. So I'll take a hymn and turn to page 435. 435. not doing well at all. They're gonna put him on Dallas, I think, this morning. And get him where he can have a heart care. He's got a blockage, they can't do anything with it till he get his kidneys functioning right, so they're gonna put him on Dallas. They're trying to get him to Dallas this morning, so he can do that. So he's not doing well. We need to remember him and the family as they go through this. Anybody else we need to put on our prayer list?
Where's Cole at?
Cars and diaphragm.
That's for better?
No, man.
Hospital. In the hospital.
He's in room 168.
168.
Judy Thomas has got double pneumonia. She's at Dyer's Park. Judy?
Mark. Anybody else? Let's remember these. Good praise. Heavenly Father, just remember what this is. Lord, I ask you to hear these been mentioned. Please you to touch. Or be these families in these situations. In Jesus' name I pray.
Good morning.
Good morning.
That was a good response. Good morning.
Good morning.
What a beautiful morning it is to be in the house of the Lord. As tired as I am, I would not rather be anywhere else, even my bed. I would not miss this for anything else. If you have your Bibles, turn to John chapter 20. The Gospel of John in chapter 20. And I just want to take a moment before we actually get into the scripture and the message for today. I'm not sure if Brother Tim will actually ever see the video or ever even know that I said this, but over the past several weeks I have grown a much deeper appreciation of what he does. I don't know if any of you guys have ever worked third shift, but just recently getting a job at Walmart and working third shift, working Saturday night and then coming in Sunday to church is not as easy as if you slept the previous night, obviously. And it takes a real love for people, a real love for God, and a real love for ministry to do this kind of thing on a weekly basis. And so I hope that you guys see that in Brother Tim, that he obviously really loves this church to be doing that every week, because I can't imagine doing it every week. Of course, he really only does it every other week, but still, he faithfully, continually does it. And so my appreciation goes to him, but also to this church for the amazing support that we not only give him, but you give me and we give each other. The fact that we can put our burdens on each other, we can pray for each other, just like we just did. We can talk about people who are hurting, and just come together in prayer, in unison, in one body and mind. That is a beautiful thing to see. Let me adjust this just a little bit. John chapter 20, and we will start reading in verse 24. If you will please stand for the reading of the word. And it says, Now Thomas, one of the 12, called the twin, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, We have seen the Lord. But he said to them, Unless I see in his hands the mark of the nails, and place my finger in the mark of the nails, and place my hand to his side, I will never believe. 8 days later, his disciples were inside again, and Thomas was with them. Although the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, Peace be with you. Then he said to Thomas, Put your finger here and see my hands, and put out your hand and place it in my side. Do not disbelieve, but believe. Thomas answered him, My Lord and my God. Jesus said to him, Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe. Let's go to the word of prayer. Heavenly Father, what a blessing it is just to be able to be together right now in your house and to lift your name up. And God, I pray that right now, as I speak, that I only speak what you have for us, God. That I just move out of the way. You hide me behind the cross, God, so that everything I say and do be glorifying you, God. God, we thank you for just every person here. I pray that as these words are spoken, that they penetrate hearts and minds, God, that we just apply to our lives so we may be better witnesses for you. God, use us in a mighty way. We love you, we praise you, and we exalt your name. In Jesus' name, amen. John chapter 20 gives us this story about Thomas. What do we know about Thomas? Doubting Thomas. And actually today, if you look in the bulletin, it says Thomas, the ... doubter. I meant for the question mark to actually be added, but that's totally fine. Because I want us to be able to see today a different side of Thomas. Because I think it's a little unfair, and this is just me. I get why we call him Doubting Thomas, but I think it is a little unfair to call him Doubting Thomas. Whenever Peter doubted, whenever he was on the water with Jesus, when Moses was face to face with God in the burning bush, he gave not one, not two, not even three, but 5 excuses of why he should not be called, why he's not worthy of being called. And it's not really, that's not even humility. It's just plain, God, I'm not going to do it because I can't. It's not being used by God. Abraham laughed in the face of God when God promised him a son. Y'all remember that story in Genesis? He laughed in the face of God. Who does that? Abraham, apparently. But we raise him up as one of the fathers of our faith. What about David? In the book of Psalms, we've been studying Psalms in our Sunday school class. So many times he says in his Psalms, which are words of lament, he says, God, why have you forsaken me? Why have you done this to me? God, restore the joy of my salvation. He doubts for a moment. The disciples doubted for a moment. Remember, a man came and brought his son to the disciples for the disciples to heal this child, and the disciples couldn't. So they went to Jesus and said, why can we not heal this child? Because you have doubted. The disciples doubted as well. So why is it we call Thomas Doubting Thomas? And of course, I thought, maybe this is the only place in the Bible that talks about Thomas. Other than him being called to be a disciple, it's in there too. Maybe this is the only place, and that's why we can only remember him as Thomas the Doubter, as Doubting Thomas. But today I want us to look at him as the follower Thomas, as the disciple Thomas. Because there's so much more that we can learn. This is not going to be your typical sermon about why we shouldn't doubt. Because the fact is, we're going to doubt. If we figured out everything about God, he would cease to be God. So of course we're going to doubt. Of course we're not going to understand everything. Life is going, in fact, Satan is going to attack us at all points that he can. And one of his strongest instruments is doubt, which we're going to talk about. But that leads me to my first point, actually. So, a little background here. Jesus has already died. He's risen. He's appeared to the disciples, to 10 of the disciples, because Judas has already died, and Thomas was, we don't know where he was, but he just wasn't there. So he appeared to 10 disciples, and then the disciples went and told Thomas. So Thomas was obviously some sort of important figure other than just being a disciple. He must have been a true follower that they had to go tell him first. Oh, let us go tell our friend that we've been with for so long. Let's go tell him that we've seen Jesus. So they go in and they tell him, and what is his response? Unless I see it, you're not going to believe it. And that's where we get the Doubting Thomas, where he gets the nickname. He doubts. But that's the phrase right there that I want to make my first point on. Unless I see it, I will not believe. There's a condition there that we often skip over. It's the condition that if Jesus shows himself to Thomas, Thomas is willing to let Jesus transform his doubt into faith. See, too often we sit in our doubt, and we just sit And we sit and we never ask God to change it. We never ask God to do away with it. We never ask God to transform it into real faith. But at least Thomas was like, if I meet Jesus, I will fully believe. He's willing to let Jesus change his doubt. Matthew chapter 6. I knew I would regret not marking this, but Matthew chapter 6. And verse, where is it now? I knew it was in Matthew chapter 6. Matthew chapter 6 and verse 32, I believe. I don't know why I can't find it now. My mind is racing. I'm tired. But Matthew 6, Jesus is talking in the Sermon on the Mount, and he talks about our eyes being in darkness, us living in darkness, and us not being able to see. And if we continue on, if we persist in the life of darkness, which is sin, then that hinders our ability to see spiritual things. Doubt hinders spiritual sight. So the reason why Thomas couldn't see Jesus as he was, without actually seeing the physical body of Jesus, was because his doubt was hindering his physical sight, or his spiritual sight. But the thing is, Jesus is not going to sit there and let us doubt and doubt and doubt into unbelieving. Let's take some of the examples that I gave earlier. So Abraham, God could have said, well, if you doubt me, then I'm just not going to make it happen then. I take back that promise. God's not an Indian giver. The promise was still given. And that made Abraham much stronger in his faith. Moses, God proved that Moses could do what God had chosen him to do. And it was only him that could do it because he was called. Peter, when Peter was sinking, when he doubted and he was sinking, what did he do? He reached for Jesus. And that's showing a willing heart. Saying, Jesus, I know that you can save me from this. And what does Scripture says that Jesus did? Immediately, he reached out his hand and pulled him up. Jesus is not going to let us sit there in our doubt and suffer. But we do have to be willing to let him transform that doubt. And the reason why I'm so adamant about Jesus changing it is because that's what people are failing to do so much nowadays, especially in my generation and the generations after me. Because I've said this before and I'll say it again, and it's still proving to be true. That America and the world in general is getting less and less religious every year. And every generation is predicted correctly to be less and less religious. Guess where I fall on the spectrum? My generation falls below every single one of you in here. Or the generations. My generation, and I've seen it personally. We grew up in church. We were brought to church most of the time by grandparents. Ironically, that's where my mom and dad brought me, but then my grandmother faithfully saw that I came to church. And that's the way most of my generation I've known. We grow up with our grandparents in church, hopefully our parents in church. Then we get to college, and what happens? Well, I never fully believed before, so I think I just won't go to church because that's just what they made me do. And I said, I just went through the motions. And they don't deal with whatever struggles they have. They don't deal with whatever doubt they have. Because, no doubt, when you sit in a church, you're going to have no other choice than to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, whether you hear it with your ears or whether you hear it with your heart, two different things, and that's your decision. But you're going to hear the gospel of Jesus. Now, hopefully, if you're going to the right church. And this church, you are going to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ. Amen. And the problem is, though, that we go through the motions. People my generation and younger, we go through the motions up until we hit senior year of high school. Senior year of high school, all we're worried about is getting out to college and having our own freedom. And when we have our own freedom, we abuse that freedom. And I use "we" as just a general term. Of course, my faith has grown since being in college. But again, anything that I ever doubted, because my freshman year was awful. My freshman year of college was terrible. I wanted to drop out more times than I think I've ever wanted to quit anything. And I'm not a quitter. I will fight. But college, freshman year, I was like, I want to get out of here already. And that did affect me spiritually as well. But because I stayed consistent, because I prayed faithfully, because I read, and because I stayed in church, I allowed God to transform me into who I am today. All of us go through some sort of doubt and some sort of struggle. But where are you sitting? Are you sitting in that struggle? Are you sitting in that doubt? Or are you letting God change that and make you stronger in your faith? Now, for the last couple of points, and I use the word last, I promise you I'm not close to being done. I'm just kidding. I promised Brother Jerry that we would be out early, so don't tell Brother Tim. He doesn't know that. I'm only joking again. If you have your Bible still open, turn to John chapter 11. And I believe this right here, this passage, I was going to put it in the bulletin, but I don't know. I was like, maybe they'll get ahead of me and they'll already figure out my sermon idea and everything, especially with the question mark not being in there. Thomas the doubter. Because this is one of the only other places the scripture mentions Thomas. In fact, the book of John only mentions him 3 times. We've already read one. The other one is his calling to be a disciple. And then we're about to read the 3rd one. So no wonder we call him Doubting Thomas, right? We don't know much about him, other than he's also a twin. But that doesn't really, we can't call him the twin Thomas. Although that is an alliteration. John chapter 11. And beginning, again, if I can get my papers together. Beginning with verse 11. Now, Jesus has just found out about the death of John the Baptist. In fact, the scripture should be familiar to those of you who come on Wednesday nights to be a part of the prayer meeting, because we just actually went through some of John chapter 11. And so they tell Jesus this, and remember, Jesus doesn't come to Lazarus for another 3 days. He's late. He's on time for being Jesus. But so you have Mary and Martha, they're distraught. They are upset. I just can't imagine it. They've lost their best friend. And then you have the disciples who are like, they're going crazy too. I mean, if you had just went a little quicker, Jesus, if you had moved a little quicker, we would have gotten there and Lazarus would have been made all better. But this is what Jesus says. Verse 11, after saying these things, he says, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go to awaken him. The disciples said to him, Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he will recover. So they're like, okay, well, if he's just asleep and he's not really dead, then we don't really have to go, do we? Because it's all going to be fine. Jesus had spoken of his death, but they thought he meant taking a rest and sleep. Then Jesus told them plainly, Lazarus has died, and for your sake I am glad that I was not there, so that you may believe, but let us go to him. So Thomas, called the twin, said to his fellow disciples, let us also go, that we may die with him. Let us also go, that we may die with them. Now, understand that Jesus, by this time, was already on the list, the FBI most wanted list. The Pharisees were seeking to kill Jesus. In fact, now that they knew, did I say John the Baptist earlier? Because I bet I did. He learned about the death of Lazarus. But now that the Pharisees knew how close Jesus and Lazarus were, and Lazarus had died, they knew that Jesus was coming to Lazarus. They just knew that. So they were seeking out to kill him, and Jesus knew that as well, but Jesus was going to go anyway. And not Peter, not the rock on which Jesus built his church, not the beloved disciple John, not James, not Judas, but Thomas, of all people. He's the forgotten one, kind of, at this point, in my opinion, when you read Scripture, you just kind of forget about him, because he doesn't say much, he just kind of does. But here he speaks up, and the words that he says are so profound that I could probably preach another hour on it, but I won't. But it preaches, let us also go with him so that we may die with him. Now, I used to think that this meant that he was talking about Jesus. But when I was researching it, apparently that's not the popular opinion. And I understand why, and I kind of want to give you both of the opinions, because it's not like one is right and the other is wrong. And it's not like both are wrong, but I fully believe that both are right. Because there's a transition that has to happen from one to the other. And you'll understand what I mean in just a minute. But some people believe that when he uses the word him, let us also go so that we may die with Jesus. That's the popular, or that's the what most people think of. The popular opinion is that let us also go so that we may die with Lazarus. Now, that doesn't sound so right at first, but when I started reading it in that manner, I thought, wow, this is actually really important. Because what was Lazarus? I mean, he was dead. But what was Jesus going to do to Lazarus? Raise him back to life. So what Thomas could have been saying is, let us also go so that we may die like Lazarus, so that we can have Jesus raise us back to life again. But now, this was after Jesus already explained to him that he was talking about a spiritual thing, more than just falling asleep. Like he had died. Physically and spiritually, he had died. And so what Thomas is saying is, let me die to myself, so that Jesus can raise me back to life. There has to come a point in our lives where we die to ourselves. Because man cannot serve two masters. And if we live for ourselves, that's all we're ever going to live for. But if we live for Christ, that's all we ever need to live for. We must continually, Paul preaches it so much, about dying to ourselves, dying to our flesh, to our passions, to our wants and desires to follow Jesus. Because too often we hold on to what we love most and give up the blessings that Jesus has for us. Thomas is saying, in fact, when he says, let us also go, in the Greek, which is what the original language is, there's no word that is present tense, let us go, or let us go later, or let us have already gone. It is a constant thing. Some of you will remember that, but Tim kind of explained it a little deeper on Wednesday night, is that when he says let us go, he's talking about let us keep going. Let us keep dying to ourselves, and let us constantly be raised to life by Jesus. So we see that Thomas already has an open heart, an open mind. And while he's a little stubborn by saying, well, I got to see Jesus in order to believe, and Jesus even reprimanded him for that. Like, come on, you only saw because you believed, or you only believed because you saw. But nonetheless, Thomas responded in a way that he said, immediately got down and said, my Lord and my God. He had an open heart. He had an open mind. He was ready to let Jesus transform him. And then he was also ready to let Jesus raise him back to life. And then, lastly, when we've given up our own lives so that Jesus can raise us back to life, we must also be ready to die physically. Whether that means dying on the mission field, dying doing the work of the Lord, or just ready to die. And here's why I say that. Because sometimes we don't like to think about it, sometimes we don't like to talk about it. But too many people are waiting around till the last moment of life to give their life to Jesus. And someday, it's going to be too late. That someday that you're waiting for may never come. There's some people who, they go to church, they don't have a relationship with Jesus though, but they think that because they've grown up in church, that they've made it. But they don't have a relationship, which is the gospel in a nutshell, a relationship. It's not a church membership. It's not how many good things we've done. It's a relationship with Jesus Christ. And so because sometimes we get caught up in those things, sometimes we think those things, and people in our churches today, especially in America, because America has done it to people. America and American preachers, and probably all over the world, but it's so, the prosperity gospel, follow God and great things will happen to you, is so prominent in America that it's almost overcoming the actual gospel of Jesus. And it's die to self and live for Christ. But today, I'm telling you, that's not the gospel message of follow God and everything will be fine. Because while it will be spiritually, physically it will not be. We still have to go through life. We still have to suffer through life. Who knows what Thomas had to go through for him to have to say, I have to see Jesus to believe. In fact, if you think about it, Thomas was probably super depressed at this time. You want to know why? Because the person that he's been following for about 3 years, he's been eating with, he's been spending all his time with, he walked, he traveled with Jesus, he learned from Jesus, he experienced miracles, he saw miracles happen, and suddenly he died on the cross. And remember what the Roman soldiers at the foot of the cross said to Jesus? If you're the Son of God, you can come off of the cross. Just come on down. And imagine being there and you have followed Jesus for this long, like Thomas did, and you see Jesus hanging there and you hear the words of the guard, and maybe he didn't, but who knows? But he probably thought in himself, if this is the Son of God, why is he suffering? If he's the Son of God, why did he die? Is God supposed to die? Jesus died. But it wasn't the nails that kept him up there. It wasn't the cross that killed him. It was us. It was our sins that killed him. And it was the love that he has for us that not only kept him on the cross, but raised him back to life. In fact, the only reason Jesus even came to earth is because he loved us. And I think that's something that Thomas understood very well. In fact, I think Thomas was trying to reciprocate that love. Now, when we were just reading where he says, let us go that we may also die with him, remember, the death of Jesus hasn't happened yet. But he sees something in Jesus. This man isn't just a man who came to perform miracles and do good. This man obviously cares. This man came because he loves us. Thomas must have felt that love. And he's saying, I want to reciprocate it. Not only by dying to myself so that I can live for Jesus, but so that I can also die with Jesus. And now the question comes, which part of Thomas are we? Are we doubting Thomas, or are we the follower Thomas? And I hope today we can say I'm the follower Thomas. And what that means is doubt is not central to my character. Doubt is not central to my attitude towards God. I may have the doubts, but they're not central. The follower Thomas is one who says, I'm willing to die. die to myself spiritually, or die to myself spiritually so that God can raise me back to life, or even to die physically. Are we those type of people? You know, Philippians chapter 1, verse 21, Paul says something that I've actually preached over before, and I continue to preach over. He says, "For me to live is Christ, and to die is gain." And that is the sermon alone. To live is Christ, and to die is gain. You know, I was talking earlier about what it means to be free. We like our freedom. We like being free. And so when we have to make choices on our own, that's when it's not so easy. But the choice is that we either live for Christ or we live for ourselves. Are you living for Christ today? Can you stand where Thomas stood and say, "Let us also go, that we may die with him"? I didn't point out that by Thomas saying that, it meant that Thomas could get stoned too. And that's not exactly the death that we think we want to experience. But Thomas is ready to say that. He said, I'm ready. Bring it on. And in fact, remember, most of the disciples readily brought on death. Not all of them are recorded in Scripture, but throughout church history, it's known that the disciples did not even think twice. You want to know what's different about living in today's time and living in first century Christianity? Is that living in today's time, no one will take a stand for Jesus. But and even when we do, it's almost, if our life is threatened, or even if our well-being is threatened at all, we kind of cower out, or we try to take the easy way out. In first century Christianity, you know what people did? This was actually, I was reading about this last semester. So many of them said that they just opened themselves for death. They didn't care if they were going to die because they were following Jesus. Thomas did not care. In fact, he was probably one of the first ones who just willingly said, "I don't care if I die. If I die for following Jesus, then I've died a rightful death. Because guess where I'm about to spend eternity with Jesus. So if you're going to kill me, then you're doing me a favor." And that's kind of what Paul says following Philippians 1:21. So should I say that to die is better than the living? And he says, yeah, dying is better than living because you get to be with Jesus. But while we're here on earth, let's actually live. But in order to live, you must first die. And that's the point that I want to get across today. In ending, I want us to understand what that means to die to self. Which that's something we're never going to fully understand. It's a process. We're never going to be able to just give up everything we want and desire and replacing it with God's wants and desires. It's not going to be just a one-time decision and it's all going to happen. It's an everyday thing. Like Thomas said, as I'm going, let us be dying with Jesus. Let us be dying with Lazarus. Let us be dying together as a body of believers to what we want and live for what Jesus wants. And that's the gospel message, is that Jesus died for us so that we may be raised to life. Because what happened is we're sinful people. We've been separated from God. And we've died. Now, we've got to be willing to let Jesus come in and raise us back. That's why he died on the cross. And then he rose again. We like to skip over that part. It's a habit. In all honesty, preaching so many sermons, it's still a habit to say, Jesus died for our sins. There you go, that's the gospel message. But any man can die. Only one man has ever risen from the grave. himself, and that is Jesus Christ. And all he asks is that you come to him and believe, and you will be saved. Remember what he told Thomas. He said 3 words. No, he said 4 words. 5 words. I cannot count. He said, do not disbelieve, but believe. That's it. Do not disbelieve, but believe. And I'm here to tell you, though, it's not, I don't think he necessarily means that in just a sense of, I believe Jesus is real. I believe he's also saying, believe in who you are as a follower of Jesus. Believe in the call that Jesus has on your life. Because we've been talking about Sunday school teachers and needing, or not just Sunday school teachers, but officers, and different things like that. If God is calling you to a certain position, don't disbelieve, but believe in that. Especially if you know you've been called and you've accepted it. Believe in that. Because if you doubt, you're going to be wavering. And if you sit in that doubt, it's not going to work out. You've got to let God take you the rest of the way. And I'm going to end with this kind of phrase. Let God